Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker. Welcome to the show. Now listen to me, y'all. Now, David is trying to figure out what's going on because even though he stepped to Jay and he stepped to Ryan and he understood how that played out, you know what I'm saying, each of them turning on each other, because that's what they're doing here. Sergeant Smith is playing a role in this, but he don't know what it is yet. But the write-up is gone. So he's chilling, and he's on the hunt for another one. You feel another phone, another horn, right? But he don't dare deal with Jay on this again because he understands how serious it is. Just like that, everything that he was trying to build could change overnight. And if he dealt with Jay again, he runs the risk of it happening again. So he goes to the ball field and he meets some of the guys that's on the top of the hill and tells them a little bit about what happened to him. And most of them were like, well, bro, if you would have reached out, we could have told you what was really going on with this brother down there, right? And one of the other brothers that was talking, he said, yeah, all three of them in cahoots. So David looked at him and said, all three of them in cahoots. He said, who are you talking about? He said, man, Sergeant Smith runs that. He said, explain yourself to me. So the young brother took his time and he started explaining to him like how Sergeant Smith is behind the whole shenanigans. He supplies the phones, he supplies the drugs, he supplies the tobacco, he supplies all the contraband to them. Then they distribute it out. Then they all eat. And if something happens, he makes sure to create a scenario that keeps them three intact, but anybody else can get it. And when you got that phone from Jay, something must have happened, which it did. Jay got caught with a chip. So they didn't want, for the purposes of messing up their bid, they didn't want people to start thinking that Jay was cooperating because the write-up is gone. The write-up is gone. How did that happen? He said, but most of us, we understand what's going on, man. You got to pay to play. And sometimes you got to play with the devil. And Jay's the devil. He going to tell on any and everybody to get out of what he got going on, but he wants the majority of the people to believe that it ain't him that's doing the telling, now it's you. Because it's spreading all over the compound that you the rat. So David looks at him. And he gets to thinking about the reputation that he's built and how people look at him all over the state. Not that just at this prison. All over the state, they see David as this stand-up guy. This guy is real. This guy has a high position of authority within the organization, so he can't be a rat. We can't allow that. Can't allow somebody like that to be a rat. So now he's thinking about these folks put my whole rep and everything that I've built over the years in jeopardy. So David, he walks some laps on the ball field and he's trying to gather his thoughts because right now he's plotting, he's planning, he's strategizing as to how he's going to deal with Sergeant Smith. And the brothers are walking with him and they're telling him, look, you can't go that far. If you go that far, you're going to jeopardize everything that's going on around the state. Once we step on an officer like that, then they step back on us and we don't care nothing about the fight, but we care about what it's going to interrupt. It's going to interrupt the flow of the commerce. We can't have that, bro. So David considers everything that they're saying and he understands and knows that they're telling the truth, but he wants to let Sergeant Smith know, don't play with me. Don't play with me. So after the rec yard closed, he goes back to the unit and he sleeps in that night trying to, you know what I'm saying, figure out what's going on, right? And he just having nightmares about it. And it's just sleepless night. And when he wakes up the next morning, the first person that he sees coming into the front door of the unit is Sergeant Smith. He's coming down there to take care of some things. So David steps to him. He says, Sarge, can I talk to you? He was like, yeah, step into my office. So they stepped into the office, and as soon as the door shut, David told him, he said, look, you know who I am, I know who you are, right? Sergeant Smith said, looked at him, he's like, yeah. He said, but don't play with me, man. Don't you play with me. He said, whatever you got going on around here, you and your little rats, keep my name out your mouth. So Sergeant Smith, he looked at him and he started to take a step backwards because they're in this office and the door is shut. Ain't no help coming. He could hit the button. By the time they get there, it's over with. If that's what David wanted it to be. So Sergeant Smith, he steps back again. And when he steps back that second time, his back is up against the wall. David understands what's going on and he smells the fear in him. He steps closer to him, closing the space between them. See, that's what you got to do. When you're dealing with a coward, when you see them react in a cowardly way, close the space. Make them understand that you're serious. So David stepped towards him, and Sergeant Smith threw up his hand. He said, man, hold up. Don't do this. Don't do this. This don't end good for now one of us. So David looked at him. He said, man, I'm going to tell you one more time, and this will be the last time that I say it. Keep my name out your mouth and clean up the mess you done made. So Sergeant Smith tried to play him again. He said, clean up what, man? Man, I know what you did, man. You're spreading the rumors around here that I told something. When it's your boys that telling it. Clean it up. Make it right. Or we're going to have a problem, me and you. So Sergeant Smith looked at him. He said, I got you, man. I understand. I got you. David backed out of the room, never turning his back on Sergeant Smith. You never know what a coward will do when your back is turned to him. So he walked out of the room feeling good about himself. And then when he got out of the room, he saw a couple of peons. They were all looking and staring at him. He didn't realize that he had been loud and other people could hear what he was saying. But now, people in the pod, they were looking at him. So he goes back upstairs to his cell. And he's thinking, man, I may have messed up. I may have gone too far with this thing. But he didn't care at that point. It's a done deal. It's a done deal. So now, the rumors are starting to float around the compound. David done confronted Sergeant Smith and checked him. And he backed down. Sergeant Smith backed down. So it's spreading all over the compound. Now it makes its way to the top of the hill where the other guys are at. And they send messages to David and say, meet us on the ball field. So later that afternoon, they go up on the ball field, and David's up on the ball field, and they're questioning him about what's going on. But he checks them too. He said, look, I don't answer to you. You answer to me. I did what I felt was necessary. I didn't put hands on him. I didn't do nothing. I took the advice that you gave me yesterday, but I'm not going to let somebody label me a rat and I don't step to him and do something about it. I don't care if it's the police or not. Whoever it is can get it with me. I'm going to speak up like a man. I'm not going to cower like a boy. I'm not doing that. So everybody, they was looking at him, all the guys were looking at him, they said, we understand, bro. We understand. But we just got to see how this is going to play out. He said, it ain't going to play out but one way. He going to straighten that. And if anybody got a problem with what was said about me and you think that I'm a rat, step up right now. He said, I'm not going to put up with that. And you had some brothers, he could tell what was going on because he'd been there before in the sense that he's seen what it's like when the family turns on another brother. He's seen this before. He's always been on the other side of it, but he's seen it. So he saw the looks. He saw that some of the guys that were looking at him, they had doubts in their minds about him. How quickly people's perception of you will change when somebody in authority, somebody with a uniform says that you ain't straight. When their livelihood goes against everything that the guys that believe the mess believe. How's it that they would believe the police over me, he thought? All the things that I've done for the org, and they believe that I would dare do something like it. Yeah, I turned in an electronic, but I didn't say anything about anybody else's business. That's what David was thinking. And as he went over it in his mind, he could not understand how easy it was to fall like that. He couldn't understand how easy it was to fall. So he gathered himself, started walking some laps, and he knew that this would pass. This would pass. And all the things that were going on with those three individuals, sooner or later, it would come to light, and then everything would get back to the way it was. But in the meantime, in between time, he had to weather the storm. So he did something that he normally doesn't do. He did something that he normally doesn't do. Now keep in mind, David is a believer. He's a believer. So he prayed. He prayed and asked the Most High to protect him during this time. Because during this time, it's easy for somebody to get the nerves up to do something to you. It's easy for people that want your spot to decide that they need to take action on behalf of the org when nobody else will. It's easy to do that. And once you're gone, you're gone. The org moves on. They'll only mourn for a minute, and then they'll move on. And he did not want to be a casualty of that. He understood how serious what they had done to him was. Now let me explain something to y'all. See, you spend a lot of time in the penitentiary, in the criminal game, you know what I'm saying, whether it's in a gang or just street stuff, right? Building up your name, your reputation about being a solid stand-up guy. And everybody in the streets can see for themselves what it is about you, do business with you, and understand that you keep it 100 all the way around. But as soon as somebody that wears a uniform says that you're not straight, you're not straight. And he understood that. He understood that. And there was nothing that he could do about it but weather the storm. And that's one thing I want y'all to understand about the game. It takes that much of time to end everything that you build up and make people believe that you're somebody that deserves respect. And just like that, is gone. So now, time moves on. They're on to somebody else. And the next thing you know, Jay gets caught up again. This time he gets caught up by another officer that had been watching him for a while, trying to catch him up. And he caught him up. This time passing the phone to somebody. Now this time, this particular officer, understanding what he had heard about Sergeant Smith, Ryan and Jay, he bypasses Sergeant Smith and goes straight to the warden with what he had found and told the warden why he had done it. So the warden tells him, go back and go up the chain of command, give it to Sergeant Smith, and let's see what happens. So he passes the information on to Sergeant Smith. He gives the phone to Sergeant Smith and writes up Jay. Now, Sergeant Smith, as usual, he goes to work. And when the warden sees that what the officer had told him was turning out to be true, he shortcuts the process and he relieves Sergeant Smith of his disciplinary job duties and puts him in another post. Now the write-up goes through and Jay is found guilty of possessing and selling a phone. And now he's in the hole and he's pending a transfer. Now he's panicking. He's trying to do anything he can to get up out of it. So he starts talking. The internal affairs went up there to talk to him, and then he started saying and telling everything that he knew about Sergeant Smith. They wanted Sergeant Smith. They wanted him. So he started laying out what he had been doing for years, him and Ryan, about moving product all over the compound, selling things all over the compound. But there's one thing that Ryan and Jay underestimated. They underestimated how smart, how savvy Sergeant Smith was. And he documented everything that happened, even the things that he had done for Jay. Because when he presented these things to the warden about Jay providing information, he made sure to document it so it didn't look like he was doing this to slander somebody else on the compound. He was doing this to make sure that electronics and other contraband on the compound was being removed from the compound. And in exchange for that, dropping the write-up against Jay or Ryan if he had caught one. So in this situation, the internal affairs knew that they didn't have much to go on, but they were watching Sergeant Smith. Jay ends up getting shipped. He's gone. He ends up getting shipped. So now, Sergeant Smith and Ryan are left to try to rebuild what it was that they had. And Ryan is spooked. He's spooked. He really don't want to get that deep into it like Jay was, but he likes the money. He likes the money. See, Ryan gets reclassed to become a trustee. And they allow him to go outside the gate to work every day. And when he goes outside the gate, he mows the yard outside the facility on the tractors and all of these things. And he cleans up around the compound on the outside of the compound. And lo and behold, Sergeant Smith is out there working. So Sergeant Smith tells him, he said, look, we can crank it up from out here. Because now Sergeant Smith is his direct supervisor. Direct supervisor. And he has an 8-man crew, all trustees, putting in work. So he gets them all together and he tells them, he said, look, if you do things the way that I want you to, we can all make some money, and I'll even allow your girlfriends to come out here to visit with you every now and then when it's safe. See, he was able to do that because he set their hours. See, sometimes They would work during the day, and then there were those rare occasions where they would have to go outside the gate in the afternoon to work and wouldn't be back inside the prison until maybe 6 or 7 o'clock that night. But they didn't ever go too far away from the prison. It was a work detail. So after 4:30, when all the people in the administration gone, including the warden and everybody else, he would allow their wives or girlfriends to come out, and then they would do what they do. And in some cases, he would provide the entertainment for them because he knew women on the town that like to get paid. You understand? And when they wanted it, he'd invite them out, and they'd pay him. And he started to supply all the contraband to the compound again. He kept doing it. He couldn't stop. He liked the money. He couldn't help himself. So he was making all of this money, moving stuff in and out of the fence because it was easy for his trustees to go back in because he was the one that was supposed to shake them down before they come in to make sure they didn't have any contraband. So he would let them walk right on through with whatever it was that they had. And they'd come back to the compound and they were out of control. I mean, balling, out of control, selling whatever it was, tobacco, weed, phones, oil, anything that you needed. All you had to do was put in an order and they would have it for you within a week. No questions asked, man. Money on the wood, that's how it was. So everything was running well for them for quite some time. Quite some time. And then one day, like always, one of the guys get caught up. Not coming through the gate. No. Because Simon Smith is the one that shake them down. No, they had stuff in their cell like they was at Walmart. They got bottles of oil all neatly arranged on the shelf. They had the little chips thing where they done got lackadaisical and left it in the TV so they could watch movies. So when the police went in there just on a training mission to train another officer how to shake a cell down, they go in there and they see all of these things and they started looking, they started asking questions, and then one of them turned on the TV and when they turned on the TV, a movie came on. So when he changed the channel, he saw that it changed the channel, but then he changed it back and the movie was still on. So he started to look at the TV and lo and behold, he looked in the back of the TV and it had a USB port on it. And the chip was in it. So the new officer pulled out the thing. He said, "What is this?" Showing the other officer that was training him. He said, "Let me have that." So he took it. And immediately he made a call to the lieutenant. He said, "Lieutenant, I need you to come to the building. We just found something that you need to see." So the lieutenant hurried up and came down to the unit. And when he got down there, the officer handed him the USB port. He said, "Tell me where you got it." And he told him, and the lieutenant looked at him. He said, "Put it back." He said, "We're going to wait till this inmate comes in, and then we're going to come back up in here. So put it back." They put it back, but promptly, the lieutenant let the warden know what he had decided to do, and the warden agreed with it, gave him the green light. So when they came back in, when the trustees came back in, the lieutenant was sitting down at the desk with the officer, looking like he was just supposed to be there, writing in the book. So when the inmate came in, he walked upstairs, changed his clothes, came right back out of the cell to go to the shower, and then they let him take a shower. When he got out of the shower, the lieutenant stood up, he made a call, and 2 more officers walked in, and the inmate wasn't paying no attention to what was going on, and one officer went up the other steps, and the one was behind him, and they walked up the steps behind him, and they both met at his cell. He's in the middle, and he looked at him, he said, "What's going on?" They said, "Go in your room." He said, "Can I get dressed?" He said, "What's going on? I just got out of the shower, just got back from work. Y'all need me to go back out?" He said, "No, shakedown." So he looked at him, his eyes got big. They let him step up in the room, and when they stepped in the room, they walked right over to the TV, and they said, "What is that?" as they pointed at it. And he said, "I don't know what that is." So they turned on the TV, and the movie came on. Then they turned the TV off, and they took it out. He said, "Do you know what it is now?" He said, "Is there anything you want to tell us?" He said, "Yeah, I got a lot to tell you. Just don't ship me." So the lieutenant by then had made his way to the room, and he walked into the room and he put a towel over the door so nobody else could see in. And he told him, he said, "Where'd you get this?" And the inmate without hesitation told him, "Sergeant Smith." He said, "Sergeant Smith, this over your work crew?" The lieutenant looked at him as he pondered what he was going to say, and he said, "Yes." He said, "What else y'all got going on?" He said, "What am I going to get for it?" He said, "Whatever you tell us, we'll consider. But right now, you're going to the hole unless you tell me everything now, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do for you." So he promptly started telling him things, and if you want to know what it was that he was telling him, you're going to have to tune in to the next episode. You know what it is. It's been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I'll say peace, y'all.